The House of Mouse isn't always the happiest company on earth. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 dark facts behind Disney.
Perhaps you would like to hear the tale? It begins on a dark night, where a dark man waits with a dark purpose.
For this list, we're looking at all things that the Walt Disney Company probably doesn't want you to know. We're excluding discussing the most famous, darkest Disney stories because we've already covered them in another list. Number 10, they've been sued by animators.
Fine. So instead of subtracting 2 years from your sentence, hey, I'm gonna add 2 on, okay? Give that your best shot.
For many, being an animator for Disney Animation would be a dream come true. But as incredible as it might sound to work for Disney, it's not always talking animals and trips to theme parks.
If you're not progressing as you should, instead of grumbling and growling, do something about it.
In 2014, animators and VFX employees from several different companies, including Disney and Pixar, began a legal case over alleged backroom anti-poaching deals that would ensure that people remained in their current jobs. The subtext was that Disney could pay its employees lower salaries without fear of them finding higher-paying work or better conditions elsewhere. Disney settled in court for a massive $100 million.
You see? The contract's legal, binding, and completely unbreakable, even for you.
Number 9. The opening of Disneyland was a disaster.
The decision was, should we have drinking fountains or restrooms? Because there literally wasn't enough time to get both done. And Walt said, well, you know, we've got to have restrooms, and people can drink Coke and Pepsi, but they can't pee in the street.
When you think of Disneyland, you probably imagine a place of magic that is always pristinely clean and where it seems like nothing bad could ever happen. But when the park opened on July 17, 1955, it was pretty much an unmitigated disaster.
The director of the TV show said, well, what am I going to have to shoot on Sunday? And the art director said, you'll have plenty to shoot. We're going to be pouring cement.
The situation was so bad, the day was forever known as Black Sunday. For example, counterfeit tickets were used, so there were many more visitors than the park was anticipating. And the lineups to get in were massive, causing traffic jams and allegedly forcing some kids to have to pee in the parking lot. There were also tons of ride breakdowns and shortages of food. Seems like they managed to work out all those kinks, though.
And holding the old train there on the track occasionally. Opening day at Disneyland was really tough. We had gas leaks, the Mark Twain was overloaded and was sinking, and, you know, I could go on and on and tell you disaster stories, but somehow we made it.
Number 8. Real human bones were used as decoration for a ride.
Dead men tell no tales.
A pirate's life for me indeed. When Pirates of the Caribbean opened at Disneyland in 1967, it quickly became a fan favorite ride, eventually even spawning a film series decades later.
You better start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
But did you know there's an extra level of authenticity to the experience that you may not have imagined? Legend says that the designers and creators wanted to make the ride feel believable, so they actually sourced real human bones for the skeletons.
Tremendous number of elements went into that attraction. It was the way to tell stories in the most thorough manner.
While most of these have reportedly been removed, many say the skull above the bed in one scene is still one of the originals. Number 7. Walt Disney had some opaque last words. Walt Disney's untimely death in 1966 came at a time when the company was expanding rapidly, and it was a major loss for the House of Mouse. He died when he was in his mid-60s from lung cancer, but largely kept his illness a secret.
And I said, for gosh sakes, Walt, why don't you give up smoking? And he says, well, a guy's got to have a few vices, don't he?
There are a lot of rumors surrounding Disney's death, but one bizarre fact that is actually true involves his last words. Well, his written last words at least. Disney wrote down Kurt Russell on a piece of paper, and decades later, we still don't know why.
Oh yes, you're about to meet a 15-year-old boy for whom I predict a great acting future. His name is Kurt Russell.
Russell was, at the time, a child actor who had done work for the company and soon became a star. But no one knows what the significance of this final message was.
I used to play ping pong with Walt Disney. Does that count?
Number 6. They don't let movies film in their parks. As you would imagine, Disney is pretty protective of its intellectual property. They definitely don't want anyone producing their own movies in their theme parks, especially when the movies don't exactly paint a favorable picture of the most magical place on Earth.
Okay, we need to get a picture with the castle, the whole family.
Picture of the castle. Let's do it.
But people have managed to bypass the system and film on the site without getting permission. The Florida project, whose last scene was secretly filmed at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom Park, garnered Willem Dafoe an Oscar nod. Another notable example is Escape from Tomorrow, which takes place almost entirely at Walt Disney World Resort. Disney basically pretends that this furtively shot movie doesn't exist.
No? Well, if it's not turkey, then what is it?
You really want to know?
Well.
Number 5. They had a strong connection with Richard Nixon.
Don't get the impression that you arouse my anger.
Many celebrities and public figures have made trips to Disneyland over the years, but there are some that the company would probably prefer to no longer be associated with too prominently. One example is Richard Nixon, who had some deep ties to the park. Because Nixon's childhood home was close to Anaheim, he was actually given a ceremonial key to Disneyland around the time of its opening. He was also there for the launch of the monorail.
It is our good fortune to have our friend and fellow Californian, the Vice President of the United States, Mr. Richard Nixon.
But most notably, Nixon actually delivered his famous "I am not a crook" speech right in Disney World, at the Contemporary Hotel.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Number 4. They bury what they feel doesn't help the brand. The company is known for doing its best to hide away or suppress aspects of its past, including racist and stereotypical portrayals.
Well, I'm glad there ain't gonna be no trouble.
There ain't no place that far.
Down the memory hole they go. But Disney even does this when it originally meant well. For example, in the midst of World War II, Walt Disney decided to make a short satirical propaganda film, partly as a promotional tool for war bonds. The short in question, which actually won an Academy Award, featured Donald Duck in an extended nightmare as a German factory worker slaving away, zig-heiling, and even briefly reading Mein Kampf.
Here, improve the mind.
But after the war, Disney pretty much buried the movie for half a century. Note to Disney, we know Donald wasn't a real Nazi. Number 3. Walt initially didn't allow some women to be animators.
Now that the company's finances were public, everybody knew the boss was making 5 or 10 times more than the highest paid members of his creative team, and more than 100 times that of the women working in ink and paint.
Some of Walt Disney's social views were incredibly dated, to say the least. One of the most damning was the fact that he was reluctant to hire young, unmarried women to train to be animators in the early days of the company.
Soon she starts getting ideas and thinking.
Gaston, you are positively primeval.
In a letter from the 1930s, the company wrote to one woman who had expressed interest in animation, quote, "Women do not do any of the creative work in connection with preparing the cartoons for the screen, as that work is performed entirely by young men. For this reason, girls are not considered for the training school." Yikes.
Perhaps not.
No,
give me that. No.
Mr. Clayton, I think I'll take it from here.
Number 2. Disney leverages its power.
Most people thought he was crazy to build some kind of a big park like that way down there where nobody could get to it.
When Disney broke ground on Disneyland in Anaheim, California, the area was mostly bucolic, full of orange groves and walnut trees, and far from the urban sprawl it is today.
In fact, a place of hopes and dreams, facts and fancy, all in one.
Over the years, though, Disney has dominated the city and its municipal government, and has been accused many times of bullying the city into decisions that weren't fair or equitable, including receiving tax rebates and access to building permits. And it's not just in California. Disney's faced opposition from many theme parks it's opened worldwide, with major protests taking place when Euro Disney in France was created.
When you do this, immediately the reaction is, okay, they don't understand us, or they don't respect us, or, they don't care.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. They pretty much own everything.
I, for one, salute our new corporate overlords. Now, family,
Put on the mouse ears.
Is Disney aiming for a monopoly on entertainment? In the world of TV and movies alone, they have famously bought out some, much of, or all of, deep breath, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar, the former 20th Century Fox, ABC, FX, National Geographic TV, A&E, ESPN, and Hulu. Whew. So many popular film franchises are Disney property, it's overwhelming.
I am inevitable.
And now they're hitting Netflix where it hurts with the streaming colossus Disney+. It's hard to imagine where the company will go next, since it seems that they already lord over nearly everything we watch.
Aren't we forgetting one teensy-weensy but ever so crucial little tiny detail? I own you!
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.